I thought I knew what home was, but I was wrong. What was built these past 2 years and a half was not permanent. Despite the sadness I feel, I can recall the joy and warmth I experienced having found a home. As I reflect on the meaning of a home, I can acknowledge that it doesn't mean a physical space, but rather finding a connection that makes life feel fulfilling. I thought I had found a home that would be with me for a long time, but I was sadly mistaken. Home to me was a person who I loved, but now that they're no longer a part of my life, I was left to search for a new one. If I were to describe a home, I would associate it with people who make me feel whole. So why do I interpret home in this capacity? Well, I suspect that it's because the childhood homes I grew up in never felt normal. The first house I had ever lived in was a multi-generational home where each bedroom was occupied by a family. It didn't occur to me how abnormal this living arrangement was until the end of my formative years as a child. There was an experience I had that made me feel ashamed of growing up in poverty and being a child of immigrant parents. The dynamic of my immediate family was complex on so many levels and inherently toxic with the amount of arguments and verbal abuse that was projected by everyone. The second house that I had lived in for the longest amount of my life made me feel anxious and frustrated, so I used video games as a coping mechanism to detach myself from what was happening in my environment. Most of my days were spent logging into Maplestory to escape from the house. However, there is a vivid memory I can recall that happened when I was a sophomore in high school. As I was watching television with my younger sister downstairs, my dad came home from work one night and rushed upstairs, yelling and shouting as he got to the master bedroom. At first, I thought it was just going to be another fight my parents were having, but this night was different. After that interaction had occurred, my distressed mom came running downstairs and went to the medicine cabinet to attempt to overdose on pills. Seeing my mom try to take her life at the age of 15 traumatized me for a long time. That same house felt like a prison. It wasn't until I was 28 that I'd had the chance to move out, something I had wanted to do since I had turned 18. However, I needed to stay home to support my family. It wasn't financial support that I needed, but assistance to keep the house we didn't own. Because we had a Section 8 housing voucher, moving away would have inconvenienced my family and led to a lack of stability in everyone's lives. I moved into the house in the first grade and lived there for 21 years of my life. So my parents' expectation was for me to sacrifice my life for the betterment of the family. My parents eventually got divorced when I was around 19, while my parents still lived together. Mom was in the master bedroom while Dad lived in the living room. What a strange time that was. But my mom eventually moved to Salinas during the pandemic. I wanted to move as well and start my life, but it would have meant that my dad and sister were living in a 3-bedroom home they couldn't afford. The expectation was for me to stay around until my youngest sister graduated college. The home is now elsewhere, and it changes over time. For now, my replacement is my art studio, and I'm truly grateful to have the space to occupy that void that has developed in the past few months. However, I can't help but wonder what would be my next home? When would it appear? Where would it be? I know another home is out there for me. I just have to be patient.